So, I'm going to talk to you today about health and human rights. I'm going to try to explain why you need to look at health and human rights in a multidisciplinary perspective. So, what do you study to study human rights? It seems to me a difficult question. You could study political science, anthropology, law, public health, medicine, biology, and film, language. I've studied all of these things. I don't know that I know everything about human rights, but I'm trying to figure that out. Where do you study human rights? Places I've studied are Berkeley, Jerusalem, Izmir, Istanbul. And what do you do with the study of human rights? I want to show you one of the things that I've done looking at health and human rights. I'm going to show part of a documentary I made, like the first 2 minutes. This documentary was shot in Jerusalem, in Israel, and it shows a Syrian boy who came to Israel to get treatment from an Israeli hospital. I helped him with translation, I helped him find his way, and one of the things I learned from this project is if I had not studied Arabic, if I had not known the medical conditions, if I had not understood his culture, I would have nothing to do. And of course, you need film to actually do something with this, to try to transmit this knowledge. So let's look at this for a second. And there's no sound. Wait, sorry.
It's probably this.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Man, the sound might be off on the.
No, where's it going? Okay.
Maybe if we escaped out of it, maybe.
No?
No. Yeah, let's try this. I think maybe the sound is turned off on the.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not.
It's
Okay.
not.
So it's. Oh, you know why? Because it's probably plugged into the. Let me do this.
Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. Let's see. Here's why. A simple solution. A missing plug. Here we go. There we go.
We need design to help
No,
us.
I've been inspired. Okay, so
No.
here we go. Problem solved.
If I could figure out how to return
Got
to
really. Let's see.
Okay. Okay. There we go.
هاي عن سوريا ويا رب اللي تقوله عن سوريا يتحقق. يا صاحب الفرج يا عالي بلا درج يا من شق البحر لموسى حتى خرج أخرج حتى خرج أخرج أهل سوريا من الضيق إلى الفرج. كنا بسوريا قاعدين بس صار قصف وصار ضرب يعني وكان أبوي معتقل يعني ما في حدا بالبيت وأمن فايت ويقلم حجر لا أنا ولا أخوي وأبوي كان بالسجن ننام بالبيت نضل يا عند بيت جيراننا يا عند بيت يعني بيت خالتي نضل هناك مشان ما ياخذونا على السجن بس أبويا كان هناك خدينا استأجرنا بيت بساحسة طلع أبوي قعد معانا كم يوم ردم خدم أبويا مرة ثانية قام الله نفذوا أبويا وطلعهم طلع من هون فقال لا ضرب ولا هاي راح أطلع الأردن طلع الأردن نحن ما طلعنا طلع هو وأخويا ما طلعت أنا مشان أكمل دراستي يعني وأمي ظلت معايا وأخواتي يعني ما رضوا يطلعون فضليت هيك بس الوضع تأزم يعني صار يسيء إلا أكثر يعني صار في قتل وفي ذبح وصرنا نشوف قدامنا ما نقدر نحكي فقالت اتصل أبويا قال تجي مع الأردن اليوم ورحنا على الزحتري ضلينا بالزحتري بس ما قدرنا نعيش بالزحتري ضلينا شي شهر أكثر من الشهر يعني شهرين تقريبا كمان الزحتري مو منيح لا عيشة لا مطر إذا تشتى الدنيا صعبة كثير العيشة فيه ضلينا هيك حتى رحنا في كنيسة الاتحاد في زلمة اسمه بشارة هناك، هو اللي عرفنا على الجمعية هون تبع اخواننا اصلا بالاردن، الدكتور. بعدين قال ان شاء الله راح ناخذ كمان اسرائيل.
Okay. So Hassan came to Israel to do a surgery, a great transposition of the great arteries. He came and stayed there for months, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to react. And I took him through Israel, where I'm familiar. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't taken courses that told me how to interact in a difficult situation. There's cultural difference, there's Jew, there's Muslim, there's many problems that we would have had if I had not known what to do. So some of the courses that I took for the course thread were Anthropology 189, where I talked about violence and subjectivity, understanding trauma on a level of culture. Public health, a graduate course in international maternal and child health. What are actually the conditions, what are the health knowledge that I needed in order to perform some of these things. I also worked at a hospital in Jerusalem, translating between Hebrew and Arabic and English, and helping sort of in the emergency room with patients. And then also Introduction to Medical Anthropology, where I learned to contextualize medicine in a different way. I've also taken many other courses that are connected to human rights, whether it be things like coexistence in Middle East peace, which I studied in Jerusalem, Southeast Asia, global health economics, terrorism, and human rights. I want to take you through my thought process very quickly and as broadly as I can to look at what you can do when you understand health in a multidisciplinary way. This is one project I worked on in maternal and child health in Yemen for one of my course-led courses. We titled it the Khadija Project because I believe that Khadija is a figure in the Muslim culture that spoke to me about sort of role model for women. So why child marriage? So here you see a map, and what's interesting about this map is most people would say, okay, the Middle East, obviously there's going to be the highest child marriage, obviously, because it's Muslim and we don't know what it is. But actually, there's only one country on this list that's in the Middle East, and that country is Yemen. And that's why we decided to look at Yemen. And the first thing we did was say, okay, what are the public health aspects that we need to look at? What are the health concerns? And we look at the health concerns, we see we have higher rates of maternal mortality in pregnancy, earlier childbirth, obstructed labor, obstetric fistula, preeclampsia. And if we look at the concerns for the child, we also have high rates of child mortality, low birth rate, prematurity, nutrition issues, low levels of maternal education. But then we need to go outside of public health. We need to say, okay, what are the correlates? What can we do about this problem? Because by the time you've gotten to the health concern, it's already an emergency. By the time we need a doctor and we need to try to deal with a girl that's 8 years old that's in a hospital because her husband decided to marry an 8-year-old, it's a little bit late. So what can we do before? So let's go outside of public health. So we have education, girls' schooling, the age gap, which can be 73 years in some cases in Yemen. We have region, we have wealth, we have religion, we have husband education. So let's look at Yemen for a second. I'm going through this as fast as possible. There's a lot to learn. So we have this issue of religion. So what does religion mean in Yemen? So we have the issue of Sunni and Shia. We have Wahhabi, which is now becoming an issue with Saudi Arabia. And then we could look at it in an economics way. We could say, okay, well, Yemen is not Saudi Arabia. I don't think I need to tell you that. But the issue here is that Yemen is really one of the poorest Middle Eastern Arab countries. So maybe that's the reason. But we could also look at it in a different discipline. We could also take it and look at education. So do women actually have more education than their husbands? Well, for Palestinians, which I normally work with, that's generally a possibility. But with Yemen, that's not. It's just not on the cards. And then what is the problem? Well, Yemen has the most child marriage cases of any of the Arab countries. You can look at it and compare it to Palestinians, Moroccans, Lebanese, Jordanians. So we could also look at it in terms of law. So it's not a given that a Muslim country would have a law that wouldn't have punishments for child marriage, because in Algeria, Iraq, Egypt, Jordan, Libya, Oman, Tunisia, United Arab Emirates, and Morocco, there is a minimum age difference. So you have to be 18 to marry. In Yemen, marital rape is not a crime. It is illegal for a husband to have sex with his bride until she has reached puberty. But what does that mean if we look at the law and there's no punishment for that? Doesn't matter at all. So looking at it from a law perspective, I would say perhaps a little bit not there. I'm going to skip through this a little bit because we don't have a lot of time. But we could also look at it from a political perspective. We could also say that when Mohammed Bouazizi lit himself on fire in Tunisia, that things changed in Yemen. We had an opportunity to actually do something. We had an opportunity with the new referendum to actually change something in Yemen. And people did. They tried. They took this case of an 8-year-old girl named Rawan, and they tried to change things in Yemen. And now, years after I've made this presentation, or this slide, we can see that nothing has actually happened. Because if we look at it from a political science sort of way, we can see why. We can see that there's opposition from the party Islah, there's civil unrest, there's poverty, there's low literacy rates, and a lot of the country lives in rural settings. So what can we learn about maternal and child health from Yemen? One thing that we tried to do, and I won't go into all the specifics of this because I don't have time, but one of the things we tried to do was actually educate the husbands. Because if you look at the situation from an interdisciplinary perspective, and you look at the culture, and you look at the language, and you look at the political setting, then you realize that really helping the women, educating the women, is not going to do a whole lot unless you educate the men. And to do that, you need to talk to the religious leaders, and you need to ask them to put it in their context. You need to ask them to put it in Muslim quotes, and you need to ask them to speak in a way that these people are going to listen, and you need to have them lead the movement. And that is how you bring it into politics. That's how you bring it into advocacy, to tell Islah that they are not allowed to go to the national referendum and say that we don't care about women. That's what you have to do. So if you don't study public health in a way, or these health concerns and human rights in a way that's multidisciplinary, you wouldn't be able to do this. You wouldn't be able to say that we need to go to the Muslim religious leaders. You wouldn't be able to say that we need to do it in Arabic, that we need to understand the politics and how it connects. So I propose that we look at human rights and health from a multidisciplinary perspective, that we require students to learn languages, to learn cultural things, to go and understand anthropology, to dive into these cultures before they try to change them. And that's what I have to say.
Were you able to, I think about travel restrictions that you might have faced, or just, I don't know, was it easy for you to operate in Yemen?
No.
As someone who, you're Israeli?
Yeah, so that's not an option. We proposed that it was a 2-part intervention. So the first part was sort of educating the religious leaders and giving them the tools, and basically the idea was, it was based off something in Niger. So the idea was to take husbands, and they would meet after Friday prayers, and after the religious leaders would sort of go and talk to them. And the second part was computer literacy, so that the women could actually work, because the unemployment rate is just ridiculous. So those were the 2 aspects, and we didn't actually put it in place. We proposed it to U.S. aid.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted.
Yeah, I can't actually. I can't go the other.
Yeah. What your strategy makes a lot of sense when you say, okay, we're going to convince the religious leaders, and maybe I don't know how hard that was. Was that a difficult thing to do, or were a lot of religious leaders kind of on board and say?
No, they're not on board.
They're not on board. So it's a very difficult thing to do. That's a very good strategy, and obviously they have the authority to kind of talk to these guys that you want to educate.
What you want to do is you want to take these ideas and using sort of the anthropology method here to say that instead of saying, this is human rights, this is what's correct, these are health concerns, this is what we want to say, and putting this in a perspective of saying, okay, what does Islam say about these issues? What does the Quran say about this and this issue? And letting that speak to them.
Sure.
Because that's so much more powerful. They're still against you. They still want to use, their own sort of the initial ideology they have, but when you talk to them in a way that using their own text, it's a little bit of a different conversation. They also don't really know the public health concerns a lot of times. It's sort of like a new information to them, which is shocking, but true.
No, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the what percentage of the religious leaders that your organization dealt with in the USA do you think were convinced by this, or do you feel like there was a kind of impact that happened, or?
So it's sort of still in the stages where we don't know. To be honest, it's a in progress thing. USAID actually did a project before that had finished, and we sent them this proposal, and explained why their project didn't work to them, because they did exactly what I said. They did this. We are the West. We know what we want to tell you, and these are the public health concerns, and that's just not the way to do it. So this is a sort of project in progress now. So I don't know, but it looks, it has a lot more potential. And in Niger, there was huge successes from this.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know that the same problem exists in human rights issues or public health issues, obviously in other parts of the world, in the same way that, in a lot of parts of Africa, obviously, where it's this idea that, the kind of, all these kind of our Western, thank you, Western saviors for coming in and, saving us from all of our, right, where it's like that the kind of collusion with the West is something that's really looked upon as problematic.
Definitely. I mean, even when I'm working in the emergency room and I'm speaking to an Arab patient in Hebrew, because my Arabic is not 100%, that's not going the 100%. Like, I need to do the 100% to really understand the patient, to really do what I need to do. So that's not really, I don't see that as a Western culture versus a Middle Eastern culture. I see that as two Middle Eastern cultures, but still, it's not 100%. And I have to go, to really be there for that patient, you really have to be able to do the whole full run.
Thanks so much.